Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to today's Kendo rant. I'm filming from the car again because I'm super strapped for time today, so it's only going to be a short one. I'm going to have to blitz through the questions really quickly, so let's get straight into them. Okay, first one. A few of the Kendo car here are preparing for their first tournament. I would like some advice for those preparing. Thank you. Okay, so preparing for your first tournament, what you need to think about. Right, well, it depends really what you mean by preparing for it, but if you're talking about what you should practice at the dojo before sort of running up to a tournament, well, to be honest, I'd be looking at things like kirikaeshi, uchikomi, jigeko. Then if you've got the chance, plenty of jigeko, but also things like ippon shobu, so that's when you do kind of a practice like just between the two of you, a kind of fight for 1 point. That sort of thing is what I'm probably looking to do mainly. Outside of sort of at the dojo, things that you can do at home, things like running and stuff like that if you wanted to. But I mean, if it's your first tournament, I mean, I wouldn't worry about it that much, you know. The best thing you can do is just go and enjoy the tournament, just do your best, and don't put too much pressure on yourself for sort of you know, trying out for this first tournament. It's, you know, it's more about the experience, enjoying it, and just doing your best, like I said. Next one. Hi Andy, I'm sending you this question for the rants that you post yeah, via PM. Yeah, so it was sent. This was sent to me by a direct Facebook message. Okay, I'm the most senior senpai in a small public kendo club. I find that in order to help my dojo mates get better, there's a life coaching aspect to kendo teaching. I find that people's life issues and demons really come to the fore when doing kendo. Some of my dojo mates suffer from a combination of very low confidence, self-esteem, ADHD, high anxiety, and other things that prevent them from progressing when improving in kendo. I try to give them general life coaching advice which they rarely follow. Their low follow-through rate of life advice that I provide generally makes their kendo stagnate or even backslide. I find it really frustrating, but I'm generally patient with my kohai, but it really shows in their kendo. Like not being able to concentrate, not being able to listen to instructions, ignoring the things I say about chakuso. Chakuso is like you've written in the parentheses, but it means like you know, wearing your armor and your uniform properly, stuff like that. Taking too long to put on their men when I say to practice it at home, providing your kendo show video, thank you. Not remembering what they learnt in practice, etc. Once I realise that they don't listen to my advice on a subject, then I no longer offer it. It's quite a frustrating process to see their kendo development suffer because of the mental and emotional baggage my kohai take with them onto the dojo. My question is, how much of a life coaching aspect is there in kendo? I got the impression in Japan that there's also a life coaching aspect as well, albeit more subtle. Is it true to an extent? How much is too much? How much is too little? Should I even be doing this at all? Thanks. Okay, cool. That's a great question. Okay, so basically what you're saying is as the kind of senpai or sensei or teacher or role model for the people in your kendo club, how much sort of advice should you be giving them about their actual personal life, sort of outside of kendo, and how much of that is kind of part and parcel of being a kendo teacher? Right. It's quite a tough one. In Japan, it's pretty uncommon to get sort of personal sort of life advice from a teacher, unless you have a specifically close relationship with them, you know, and there's a particular thing that's happening. But at the same time, in Japan, people are much more kind of introverted anyway. It's not the sort of thing, you know, if people have got an issue with their personal life, it's not something they talk about with people on the outside anyway. They often don't even talk about it with the families. So I wouldn't say it is something that's common in you know, in Japan, possibly with like high school kids or something like that. If a teacher obviously notices this, I mean, I guess it depends on the person, You know what I mean? I mean, some people are probably really good at that sort of thing, and some people probably just don't get themselves involved in it. But we're not talking about high school people here. We're talking about adults that are voluntarily coming to Kendo off their own volition. So look, here's what I think if I was to put myself in your position. And you know, if I had people in my dojo that had these sort of issues, to be honest, I don't think it's my place to get myself involved in it. I'm there to teach them Kendo, and I'll talk to them about Kendo, but I'm not someone that's there to give them advice about their personal life. I understand that you feel like it's affecting their progression in Kendo, which it might well be doing. I'm sure it is. But to be honest, my point of view on that is, well, it's not really, unless they specifically came to me and said, oh, this is something that I'm struggling with, can I have your advice about it? Then I'd keep out of it myself, because it's not really my responsibility. It's not really any of my business. And if I was in the situation where I was telling them something, like you're saying, you know, telling them about the chainsaw, or telling them about this or that, and they were ignoring it, or they just weren't taking the advice, well, I'd do what you were doing. And I do that. You know, if I give someone some advice and they ignore it, then fine. You know, all I can do is, it's not my responsibility to make them better at Kendo. It's theirs to become better at Kendo. All you can be is a resource. The teacher can only be a resource. This is something that I wanted to do a bit of a rant on anyway. But your teacher, the sensei, it's not their responsibility to make you better at Kendo. It's your responsibility to get better. They're just a resource for you. So, you know, if you give someone advice as a teacher and they don't take it, well, that's on them. You know, they don't have to get better. Obviously, it's obviously better for everybody if everybody progresses. But you can look, you know, the old saying is, you can lead the horse to water, you can't make them drink, right? So you can't force someone to get better. So if they're not going to take your advice, well, that's their problem. You know, they're not going to progress. They're not going to pass the gradings. They're not going to win the Shiai. They're not going to get to do the things that sort of they probably want to do in Kendo in the long run. Or maybe they're happy not being very good at it. I mean, that's whatever. That's, you know, that's up to them. So in sort of conclusion, I'd sort of try and stay out of their personal lives unless you've got a specific close relationship with them, or they specifically ask you for it. Because, you know, it's like I say, it's not your responsibility to be taken on. Okay, next one. Andy, I appreciate your videos. I've been following you along since before I started Kendo. Oh, good, thank you. The AJB TV time, sorry if that brings back bad memories. Now, AJB TV was good. That's what started me on the whole YouTube thing. Certainly not bad memories in that respect. I appreciate all your hard work and hope to see you in person one day. Oh, I'd like that as well. I hope we can. My question is, what's your view on deliberately disarming someone with this example? I was watching the championship studying the Swedish Nito Ryu Kendoka because I'd love to learn Nito. When I noticed specifically, and then you posted a link, the opponent seemed to get frustrated and purposely hits his Daito 3 times before attempting men twice. The judges did separate them after this, which I would assume that they weren't sure if they would give handsoku or not, but I wasn't sure if this is something I would call proper etiquette. Another example I might think of is someone purposely lets go of their right hand. Would it be okay for me in that moment to attempt to strike the shinai so that I may disarm them? Okay. So, the link you posted, I actually clicked on it and it didn't send me to the Shiai you're talking about. So I haven't seen the Shiai that you're talking about. It sent me to a totally different match. So I don't know the specific example that you're talking about. In general, it's not handsoku to knock somebody's shinai out of the hand, even intentionally, all right? It's part of the back and forth of the Shiai. However, if that's your sole focus, to only keep beating down on the person's shinai without sort of making any attempt or effort to actually make an attack, or to sort of progress the Shiai, then it becomes a problem and could be considered handsoku. It's a little bit similar to sort of aggressive pushing or even time wasting. So yeah, I mean, I've never seen it happen though, where somebody their sole purpose is to try and disarm the person. Obviously, if the person gets in a weakened position, like you mentioned, they take one of the hands off the shinai or gets hooked in a similar certain way, and you do something that causes them to be disarmed, and it's intentional that they get disarmed from doing it, that's fair game, right? That's the sort of general back and forth of a shiai. It's kind of a fight in a way. I hesitate to use that word though, but you know, it's a serious competitive situation. So of course, it's okay to do that. I'm going to just quickly refer to there's a thing called the guidance notes for Shimpan, and these were translated from Japanese into English by actually by Robert Stroud Sensei, who's a 7th Dan Sensei, who I respect very, very much, over in the US. He actually sent these to me, and I've seen them many times before. They're really, really good. It's a kind of a guidance note sort of handbook to going along with the regulations for Shiai and Shimpan, and there's a list of examples of situations in there and how you should deal with them. One of the examples says, one of the competitor's shinai is knocked down by a strong slap from his opponent's shinai, so that he drops the shinai, and then brackets it says shinai otoshi. Was it hansoku to strongly knock the shinai out of the competitor's hands, or was it the shinai otoshi, the hansoku? And the answer says, 1, if the shinai is struck as the result of a normal back and forth during the shiai, then the strike is not considered hansoku. The hansoku goes to the person who dropped the shinai. Now that's essentially what we've just been talking about. 2, strongly, brackets maliciously, beating down the opponent's shinai creates an unsightly situation that in accordance with Article 1, purpose of the regulation, should be considered hansoku. So again, that's pretty much like I said, if your only goal, your only sort of intention throughout the shiai is to try and disarm the person by aggressively and, as it says here, maliciously trying to beat down on the shinai, hoping that they'll drop it, then you'll probably get a hansoku for that. But as I said, I've never seen that happen. I'm sure it has though. Not saying that it never has. Okay, and then the last one, this is from the early access group. If you're not on that on Facebook, get in it, because you get early access to the Kendo Show videos when I post them, and it's a great forum for discussion. Hi Andy, many thanks for the great videos and informative advice. It's been a great benefit to me and my dojo mates over the years that you've been doing. Thank you very much. My question is, should I avoid doing kaishiwaza and ojiwaza when grading? I'll be going for shodan soon and want to show the right kind of waza for that level for the best chance of passing. Should I focus on straight big cuts rather than cuts that may be seen as tricking my opponent, or is it okay to mix it up? Thanks a lot. Okay, so if you're going for shodan, is it okay to use kaishiwaza or ojiwaza? Yeah, it's okay to use it. It's a little bit like similar to the question we got the other day about, can I use gyakudo in the shinsa? It's a little bit of a different situation. The guy talking about gyakudo was saying that he finds it more effective than other waza, which is sort of a question about how you're approaching the attitude towards the shinsa. Now, if you're saying, is it okay to do, or should I avoid doing kaishiwaza or ojiwaza? No, you shouldn't avoid it, or you shouldn't not do it. It's perfectly fine to do it. But there's going to be a problem if you show that that's the only thing you can do. What they're looking for shodan is that you're technically capable of making a men strike, okay, with kikentai no ichi. So that means hitting, stamping, and shouting at the same time. That's pretty much going to be good enough to be considered yuko datotsu for the level of shodan. Now, you said, should I focus on straight big cuts? Now, there's another comment on this actual post in the thread, saying talking about whether you should just use big cuts or small cuts, and then saying somebody told them not to use hikiwaza. Okay, so first off, saying not use hikiwaza in the grading, I don't agree with that. Yeah, perfectly, if you get the chance to do hikiwaza, you should use hikiwaza, why not? But you shouldn't be looking to tie up in subazeriai so that you can do hikiwaza, all right? So if you get the opportunity, do it. In terms of big cuts versus small cuts, in the grading, I don't think that there's a good reason to only do big cuts. In fact, I don't think you necessarily have to do big cuts at all. It's a kind of a thing, I don't know why, certainly here in the UK, where they say, okay, if you're going for Ikkyu or Shodan, just do big men, big men, as big as you can. And then what happens is two people do that, and then it's just a total mess. I don't think that that's the thing you need to do. If you're capable of doing small cuts, it's not even big or small, right? The big, massive men cuts that you do, they exist for the purpose of Kihon Waza. Okay, so for your basic practice, so that you can develop a better technique in order to do realistic cuts. Of course, you'd hardly ever use that sort of waza in a realistic situation. And the jitsugi, the actual fighting part of the grading, is a realistic situation. So I don't think there's a necessity to use big cuts. There's perfectly fine for you to use small cuts, or what I refer to as realistic cuts, because the size of them is kind of irrelevant. What you do have to do, though, is you have to hit, stamp and shout all at the same time. Yeah, bring up your left leg quickly and then finish with zanshin. Essentially, you need to show that you can strike with kikentai no ichi and also have an understanding of yuko datotsu, right? The size of your cuts is kind of irrelevant to that. If you can show that at the grading, then sure, you're going to pass. If you're not quite there with that, then you're probably more likely to fail. Okay, so yeah, I'd personally, this is my opinion, and if I was on the grading panel, now I don't sit on grading panels at this moment, I'll just make that clear, but if I were, my opinion is that you don't, doing a big, large cut where you swing the shinai right over your head is not a necessity for the jitsugi, the actual keiko part of a grading. Particularly in the UK, where you actually also have to demonstrate kirikaishi. I think it's up to 3rd dan anyway, so you have to demonstrate that you're doing the large cuts as part of that, so you get to show that you can do the large cuts anyway. But anyway, that's what I think on it. Okay, so the answer, just to kind of summarize, it isn't no, you shouldn't avoid doing those, but what you can't do is rely on those. You must make sure you show what they want to see, which is a men strike with kikentai ichi and at the level of yuko datotsu. All right, so if you mix that up with kaishi waza, oji waza, that's fine, but it's kind of an irrelevant thing, because it's not irrelevant, but they're not really looking to see if you can do that. All right, so if you can do the most beautiful kaishi waza in the world, men kaishi do or something, you can do the most beautiful ones in the world, and you show the most beautiful kaishi do in the world in your grading, but then you can't hit basic men, you're not going to pass. All right, so I hope that makes sense. I've got to go now. It's time for me to go and pick up the kids. I hope I've covered everything. Don't forget to leave me new comments down there below the video, or on the blog page, whatever, or in the Facebook group, the Kendo Show Early Access group. That's a really great place to post your questions as well, and I'll certainly answer them next time. Don't forget as well, like, share, subscribe, you know, all the sort of stuff that I always say. Shop at KendoStar, because that's, if you really like these videos, that's what keeps them coming. Okay, that's KendoStar.com. Make sure you shop in there. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching.